situation turns out really badly. We know that from Psalm 82. These are the sons of the Most High, the sons of God, that are getting judged and excoriated by God himself in Psalm 82. They become corrupt. They rule chaotically. They seduce the Israelites into worshiping them. This is the Old Testament explanation.
So real quick, Mike, are they angels? Are they spiritual beings? Like
they're spiritual beings.
Okay.
Angel is actually a job description.
Okay.
It doesn't really. It's a term that doesn't tell you what a thing is. It tells you what a thing does. It's a messenger.
Okay.
So these are spiritual beings, and the rest of the Old Testament.
But we don't know where they came from, correct?
They're all created beings. I mean, you have Psalm 148, you got Psalm 33, you got Nehemiah 9. I mean, God created all things visible and invisible. Colossians 1:16, and they were originally working for him, but when they get assigned to the nations, they go astray. They become hostile. They become adversarial. They don't rule according to God's good justice. You know, the way He wants the nations run. They're human beings. They're still created in His image. God wants them taken care of. But what He does when He divorces Himself from them, it's a judgment. It's a punishment. And then He turns around right after Babylon. What does the biblical story say is the next event? God calls Abraham. He says, "Look, watch. I'm disinheriting, I'm divorcing myself from a personal relationship with the rest of you, with all you nations. And you got lesser, placeholders now. Watch what I do. I'm going to create a new people from nothing, and they're going to be my people. Now I'm going to make a covenant with this guy, Abraham. And it's through him. He will produce a seed, a descendant. One of his descendants will be the seed through which all of the nations will be blessed. I'm going to bring you back into relationship with me through this guy, through this family, through this race, through this people, and through one of his seed." Of course, we know that's Jesus. But this is the situation. You know, it goes to hell in a handbasket. I mean, you have actually three divine rebellions going on, and this is why the world is so messed up. Well, I go on the pagans, talk show, and he knows all this. He's quoting me Plato. He's quoting me, this or that, Greek text about how the gods are, assigned to different nations and nations to other gods. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same worldview. But you know what? Okay, the Most High is the God of Israel. And you ask me what he wants. He wants you back. This is why Paul in the New Testament links the resurrection half a dozen times with the conquest, the subduing, the defeat of the principalities and the powers and the rulers and authorities and the thrones and dominions. They become subservient to the resurrected Christ. Okay, what Christ did delegitimizes their authority over the nations. This is why Paul goes to all these pagan places and he says, "Look, yeah, I know, you guys have these gods because God disinherited back and back. We get it, okay? But I want you to know that the time has come that in the eyes of the Most High, you're not only permitted to abandon these gods, but he demands it. He wants it. This becomes Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles. This is his message. And so it's a struggle now. These are real divine entities. They're real supernatural entities. When we're at the Exodus, okay, when God says in Exodus 12, "This night at Passover, this night I will have victory over the gods of Egypt," he doesn't mean, "This night I will have victory over these beings that we all know really don't exist." Wink, wink. No. It strips him of glory. Look, I got news for you. We think that the gods are just like cartoon characters, or like Marvel's Avengers or something. They're not real. Look, I'm better than Captain America because at least I'm real, okay?
Right.
No, when Moses says, "Who is like you, Yahweh, among the gods?" he actually means what he says. When Scripture says that Yahweh is the God of gods, it's not kidding. Okay, otherwise you're comparing the Lord to nothing. There is no glory in that. This is not the worldview.
So they understood that. That there was God. Like, where did that break off in history? Because I have to tell you, I've even looked at that way myself. Like, well, there is no other gods. There's just God. But that's not biblical. But that's how most people think.
I would say there's lots of Elohim out there. Okay, Psalm 82, God is, judging the gods. Okay, there's lots of Elohim, lots of spirit beings out there. And Yahweh's one of them, but none of them are him. Okay, there is none like him. Yahweh is species unique. He is their creator. What makes the God of Israel different is not the word Elohim. What makes the God of Israel different is the way he's described. He is the lone sovereign. He is the only creator. He is the only one who gets characterized by things like omniscience and omnipotence. No other Elohim, no other, divine being in the Bible is ever spoken of in this way. Okay, Yahweh is alone. He is what we have always thought he was. Traditional theology here, but you have to realize this is where Paul inherits the principalities and powers. Think about the way Paul describes. Paul uses the word demon occasionally, okay, and 2 or 3 times, whatever it is. But look at his vocabulary. What does he call the powers of darkness? Principalities, powers, rulers, thrones, dominions, authorities. What do they all have in common? They are all words used in the Bible and outside the Bible for geographical dominion. Every one of them. Okay, so Paul knows what he's dealing with.
Mike, before we get off track, I want to ask you this, though. So when God created us, he called us to have dominion.
Yes.
We were supposed to multiply. That dominion, these places were supposed to be ours, but we lost them.
Right. Not only that, but why does the New Testament refer to believers as sons of God, children of God? That language has a deep Old Testament context. Initially, God creates human beings. God already has a family. Job 38, the sons of God, the divine sons of God are there at the creation of the foundation of the world. He already has a family. So God decided, well, you know what? I'm going to create this place called Earth. And I'm going to create a different kind of being. He's going to be, they're going to be embodied, but they're going to be like me. They're going to be imagers. Okay, they're going to be my representatives there, just like you guys are my representatives here in the spiritual world. They're going to be representatives there. And you know what? We're going to go down there and live with them. This is what Eden is. Eden is the place where heaven intersects with earth. It becomes the divine abode. Okay, the scholars refer to it as the cosmic mountain. This is why Eden is referred to as both a garden and a mountain. This is where gods lived, gardens and mountains in the ancient history. So God comes down here and he wants us to be members of his family along with his other family. Okay, it should be the most normal thing in the world for humans to be living with God in a supernatural sense and context, even while they're embodied. This is we nowadays, because we're after the fall, the New Testament talks about believers being glorified, getting new bodies, so that they are made fit for a heavenly existence. This is what the original plan was, to have a blended family, and the family also happens to be a business. Okay, there's stuff to do. It's not just you're members of a family, but now we are co-laborers. I'm going to let you participate in what I want done on this planet. I want you to go and multiply. It's going to take a lot of you to do this. I want you to go out and make every place in the world like this place, like Eden. Eden wasn't the earth. Eden had geography. It's just a little piece of earth.
I love that you're hitting on this, because how many times have we heard just like escapist like theology? Mm-hmm. Like so many people think like, okay, the whole point of life is just so we can die and get to heaven and right. Play harps and stuff. That is so opposite of God's original plan in Genesis.
Okay, let's go back to the sons of God thing. Okay, so God allots the sons of God to the nations, and they become corrupt. They become God's enemies. All right. Well, how many nations are there? What nations are we talking about? Now, in the biblical world, again, this is all the geography they knew. We get a list of the nations that God divided at Babel. We get that in Genesis 10. There are 70 of them. All right. Then that number becomes significant. But eventually the goal is, okay, once all the Gentiles, once the other nations are brought back into the family, then Eden is going to be restored. This is why Revelation ends with the Edenic vision. But one of the neatest lines, or some of the neatest lines, are in Revelation, because, I don't know how much I get into this in supernatural, but in divine council thinking in the Old Testament, it had 3 tiers. There was God, the Godhead at the top. Then there's the sons of God in the middle. That's an administrative term. They get the most important jobs. And then at the bottom, you have the messengers, the angels. So you have God, the sons of God, and angels. These are all hierarchical job descriptions. Okay. Well, isn't it fascinating that believers get the same label as the middle tier, the ones that are over the angels? In 1 Corinthians 6, when Paul is trying to convince the Corinthians to stop fighting among themselves, over wealth and resources and all this stuff, he says, "Look, people, don't you know that you're going to judge angels? Don't you know that you're going to rule over angels? You can translate the term either way. Don't you know that? Well, what is Paul talking about? I'll tell you what he's talking about. He's talking about what John says in Revelation. To him that overcomes, okay, talking to believers, to him that overcomes, I will put him over the nations, and he will rule the nations with a rod of iron.